Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another The Geek Authority show, where I get to interview very special people for very special reasons and all their special talents. And today I have a really special person. I've known him for a little bit. I've seen lots and lots of his productions. He's amazing. He's funny. He's talented. Very smart, too, let me tell you. His name is Tom. Tom Misuraca, welcome. Thank you for coming.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Listen, I've seen lots of your productions, not all. There's one we're going to talk about that I haven't seen. You have an amazing body of work. So tell us a little about yourself.
Well, writing is my life. That what I feel I was put on this earth to do. And everyone loves to ask, well, when did you start writing? Well, my answer to that is all my life. Like even before I could write words, I was drawing pictures on papers that told stories. When I could, then I was, writing weird little stories through elementary school. And then when I got to high school, of course, like all writers in high school, we usually discover the horror stuff. So I was writing, I want to be the next Stephen King or Dean Koontz. So I was writing scary stories, or even like a little bit of fan fiction. I remember I was a big fan of the original V series. So I would write like fan fiction for that. So then I went to Emerson College in Boston. I'm originally from Boston, Massachusetts, a small town about 20 minutes outside of Boston called Revere, Mass. That is the actually known for having the first public beach in America. So I lived in a coastal town, and of course never went to the beach because when you're that close, you don't appreciate what you have. So, but yeah, I went to elementary, junior high, and high school there. Graduated from Revere High. And then I went to Emerson College in Boston, where I studied writing, publishing, and literature. At that time, my interest was still more prose. I still wanted to do novels and short stories. But Emerson is pretty inclusive when it comes to writing. So I also studied screenplays. I studied theater, poetry. So all types of, it was a very well-rounded liberal arts education. And I also studied graphic design, which if we ever talk about the other half of my life, that surprisingly not taking one class in desktop publishing is really what has helped me make money in order to do writing. So I applaud Emerson for having very early on, back in the early 90s, a desktop publishing class that was really the gateway to graphic design. But I really, at Emerson, I found my voice. So
how was the equipment you were using?
It was old school Macs, like the the old. Actually, I even think it was before I think it was before the but it was fairly advanced. But we learned Microsoft Word, we learned Excel. I don't know if those were actually called them at that time. We learned like Super Paints, which then became Photoshop. We learned PageMaker, which then became Quark, which now is InDesign. So it really was the seedlings of all the graphic design and Word programs, which I really thought helped a lot. Even going for secretarial jobs that I knew WordPerfect, that I knew Excel, helped get my foot a little bit further into the door. But again, writing was my baby, and when I graduated, I about found my voice as a short story writer. I would write wacky, surreal short stories. And then I opted to move out to Los Angeles to be a novelist, like most people do, move to LA to write novels, correct? Is that how it works?
That or screenplays.
Well, a lot of my friends were moving to Los Angeles, including my best buddy, Jay Demopoulos. And he wanted to move out here and work specifically in film and television. I wasn't sure. I lived at home when I went to Emerson. I didn't get that on-campus experience that a lot of people did. I didn't get to live on my own. So when I had an opportunity to move 3,000 miles away, I took it because I needed that change. And I did think for a while that I wanted to work in the film industry. So I worked a little bit. I worked on a couple of independent films, B movies that really ended up not going too far of anywhere. And my heart wasn't in it. The film industry wasn't my thing.
Let's backtrack just a little. So can you remember when your first article or short story was published? Do you remember that?
Well, technically my first short story was published in Emerson College's Hyena magazine. It was the comedy magazine. The short story is called If You Look at It, You May Die. And it was just a very surreal story. A guy trying to find the meaning of life while having breakfast. What I love about that story is I really found my voice in that. You know, I'd written stuff, but when I finished that story, it was almost like a high. I really felt almost drugged because something had just gone off, triggered in my brain that said, "This are the stories you want to tell, and this is your voice." And I found it, and I gave it to my friend Rob Warner at Emerson, who was running Hyena magazine at that time, and he actually published it. So,
Nice.
so the good news is it wasn't just my friend publishing my work. It was a solid, good story because it actually has been published twice since then by other independent literary magazines, including most recently was 1999. It was published on a website called Cafe Irreal, and it's actually still up there because, you know, stuff on the internet never dies. And I was ironically just looking them up again recently and remembered that I had that published there.
Okay.
But as I was
So I got a quick question. When you
Sure.
you do the writing for the newspaper, you're in school and stuff, because I've seen the majority of the stuff I've seen you do is your plays, you know, comedies,
Yes.
dramas, and scary things. So
Yep.
can you take us back just real quick about when you first walked into a theater? Did you sit there and watch a play and go, I can do this, or did you write a play and then go?
It was that opposite way. So I'll try not to do the lifelong story of it. I mean, I'd seen plays all my life. I grew up with them. My mom always took us to the theater, and I liked it. And I read a lot of plays. I loved reading plays. One of the best classes I had at Emerson was a theater as literature, and that really exposed me to everything. But writing wise, I had that one idea that I'm like, oh, this idea is kind of I did that really bad thing that I would tell a writer never to do. When I first moved out here and wanted to write for TV, I wrote a pilot called Tenants that I thought would be like, you know, my big break into the TV industry. And then when I realized that that wasn't for me, I said, but this is a good story. Maybe I should turn it into a play. So that was technically the first play I ever wrote. But meanwhile, what was happening with short stories was I was getting those published all the time. I mean, there was a point where I probably by the turn of the century, I had about 80 short stories published in literary magazines all over the country.
Wow.
So yeah, and then I I wrote a novel called Lifestyles of the Damned, which is a sort of a parody of the Anne Rice vampire books. And that got published by James Rock Press. And that was released. And I said, here I am, I made it. And suddenly it was like crickets. Nothing happened.
Wow.
I mean, I was young, so I didn't know too much of self-promotion. I did what I could. But unfortunately, the publisher, they were just looking, you know, to make a quick buck, get as much stuff out there as they could. And they didn't do anything to promote it.
At this point, you're in LA right now?
At this point, I'm in LA. So I was, at this point, I was probably in LA for, wow. So that was like the late 90s. So I was probably already here for almost 10 years. So nearly 10 years. And at that, so what I was doing day job wise, I'm sorry, I'm going all over the map, that's when I started working in graphic design. So I'd worked in the film industry. I worked in the music industry. I have like that wonderful list of things that I've done in my life. And then I just started working for graphic design companies and started with proofreading, then went into graphic design. So then I would write it, I'd write at night. I'd go to the cafe, before I go to the club because I was that young that I would still go clubbing. So between work, dinner, writing, clubbing, and repeat until this happened. So Lifestyles of Damned was a little bit of a disappointment, and I really didn't want to jump into writing another novel. So I said, hey, I've got this play Tenants that I've been wanting to work on. What can I do with it? Maybe there's like theater companies that I can join that will help me, workshop this into making it something better. So I brought it that's when I met First Stage LA, who at that time were out of the church on Franklin in Hollywood, the one with the big red ribbon, the one in a lot of movies from The Godfather to War of the Worlds.
Back to the Future.
And they had Back to the Future, and they had a little theater inside there, and First Stage met every Tuesday night, I believe, at that time, and did workshops of new pieces. So I signed up with them. I brought in a scene of Tenants, and they said, wow, Tom, this is really funny, but it's too funny. There's no conflict. There's no anything. It's just humor. So, it's either a skit or a play. So it was a awakening, but in two ways. One, I'm like, okay, if I'm going to write plays, they have to have a little bit more meat on their bones. And two, I really like this. I loved hearing my work out loud. And the first play that I wrote was called Open and Closure. Sorry. So the first, we'll erase all of that. We'll go right into this. So the first short play that I wrote was called Open and Closure. And that got into a stage reading at a little festival that First Stage put on. And that was kind of when I was bitten by the bug, to actually hear an audience laugh at my work, react at my work. And that's when I realized that theater was kind of the thing that I wanted to do from there on out.
Okay.
So,
speaking of the theater, I want to jump to some of the fabulous images you sent, and I pulled.
Sure.
So, what are you doing there? Are you in the play, or are you just?
No. Of course, when you have a wonderful cast, you want to get in on and be a part of their fabulousness. This was for the play Falling Bodies. It was a sci-fi noir I wrote, and it was produced. I don't like to direct or produce my own work because I feel you kind of have blinders on, and a different director brings in something that I might not have seen on the page. But when you're working with such wonderful actors, I opted to direct this myself. So this was for the Shadow Fest. Can't remember the year because I'm old, but it was the first Shadow Fest that they had, and this won first place. I was told by a landslide. Now I could be wrong. It was
Real quick, what's this about? What's this?
So it's basically Heidi Appy, who's there, walks into the bar that Aaron Stahl is the bartender at, and Nicholas Bocek, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name right. I apologize if I butchered it. Is the not really detective, but that Casablanca type character, and of all the bars and on all the planets and all the universes, he had to walk into hers. So it's just it's a fun wordplay of how she basically wants to get back together with him, and a lot of fun like a lot of metaphors using like space and sci-fi examples. So
there's Heidi again.
Heidi again. She's sort of my go-to actress, and that this is the set of actually a short film that I wrote based on one of my short plays called No Problem, one of my multi-award-winning short plays called No Problem.
Nice.
And I passed it on to Sebastian Munoz, who we all know does a lot of theater, produces a lot of theater around town.
And he was interviewed on the show.
I believe he was. Yes, he was. And he was looking for plays that would work as films as well. So No Problem is a play.
I know Sebastian's in the middle. Raditha's over there. Who's the guy that looks like John Landis?
John Landis. That is Walter Isaac.
Okay.
Phenomenal actor. And then next to him, do you know Jerry?
I think I've met him.
So
yeah. So what's this about? What's this little?
So this play was about a support group for people without any problems.
Really?
So so it's okay to be okay. Is the basic gist, and of course, so Raditha is the newbie coming into the group, and
so they had problems being okay. Is that what this?
They were learning that it was okay not to have any problems. That when their friends complain about problems, that yes, to not to worry about. I don't want to give too much away because it is available on the Force of Nature Productions YouTube channel, so anyone can actually go watch that, and And yeah, so Raditha comes in and makes quite a scene. So,
I see you down there, bottom row.
Bottom row, half in a very fashionable suit. This is probably the apex of my career so far. This was my musical called Geeks the Musical, being produced off Broadway in New York City.
Wow!
Last year, as it started as part of the what is it called? The Popsicle Festival, where they did 4 plays that had to do with pop culture. Geeks the Musical is basically a story of a boy meets girl at Comic-Con, boy loses girl at a Comic-Con, boy gets girl again at Comic-Con. But as simple as the plot is, what it's all about is the world of comic conventions, which especially when I wrote this back 10 years ago, nobody knew too much about that world. So a lot of the songs have to do with who Doctor Who is, what the big female superheroes and people are.
Tom,
I know we've talked about it.
You've got to do this back in LA here.
I would love to. And in the middle there with the bluish hair is Ruth Judkowitz. She was she wrote the music. She put my lyrics to music and did a fabulous job. I worried that your songs are okay, but we have to change all this. She took what I wrote and put it to music, and it ran at Right Act in was it 2004? 2004. And it broke here Right Act, and that was when Right Act was in the other church off of Franklin or Yucca, and it broke all their box office records. So
16 years, Tom, you have got to put this on again. You have got to.
I'm sorry, 2014, not 16 years.
Okay.
2014. It was
6 years.
Actually, maybe 2012. So I think we're getting up there. So
okay,
I've had the blessing of curse of having a lot of productions is it's hard to remember. Yeah, 2012 was the original Right Act production of it. So
okay, but you do plan on doing it again?
I would love to do it again. It probably needs a little bit of a facelift because that was the sort of issue we had in New York. I mean, it went well in New York. They actually extended it as a solo show. It was going to be Right Act's Sunday night show until it ran off the face of the earth, basically. We had 2 solo shows, and then unfortunately the theater pulled the lease from the theater company. That's the story of my life, so close and yet so far. So it would have been running for a while. So
now this show I saw, this was amazing.
You saw this show, yes, yeah. This was very fun. It was a interesting challenge for me, and I don't even say challenge is a difficult word because it was the first time that I actually wrote something that went so far that wasn't my original story. The story and characters came from Jake O'Flaherty, who I believe you interviewed on this show as well.
Yes, I interviewed him, and he's in the background. He's in
the background, and he had this great idea for a story and these wacky characters, and he wanted the main character, the blonde, to be Kimmy Robertson, who you see down there with her arm around me at the bottom, and it's funny, Jake came to me trying to, you could tell he was like, will Tom be interested? And the minute he said, and I really want it to be a vehicle for Kimmy Robertson of Twin Peaks, I'm like, oh, I'll do it. Because I've been a Twin Peaks fan all my life, and it was just, I knew it was going to be a wonderful opportunity.
It was a very, very funny show. The characters were over the top but real. In fact, I saw the night, I guess the person playing the mother, who's in the background there next to the African American woman?
I'm drawing a blank on her name. Is
Susan? I want to say Susan Blakeslee. Is that it?
Susan Blakeslee. Yes, Susan Blakeslee.
She stepped in days before the role because the character got out and knocked it out of the park. She had the script for a short time, but it was
one of those where she had the script in hand. It was only for a safety measure. I don't think she looked at it once, and she did not. She didn't even make a mistake. So it was.
I was in tears. It was so funny.
No.
So is this a co-writing, you and Jake, basically, or you wrote it?
Technically, I did all the physical writing. So what would happen is I'd write some bits. I'd sit down with Jake and we'd go over it, and he'd say, "This is working. This isn't working. How about doing this? How about doing that?" So technically, if we talk about guild stuff, I would get the written by credit, and he'd get the story by credit. But it was a collaborative effort throughout the whole thing. And there was even a point where we, very, very early in the game, we sat down with Kimmy, since this was a story that was about her character. We wanted to make sure that she felt it was a good piece for her. So we all sat down and did a read, just a little table read, had some snacks, and, I'm like giddy there. Kimmy Robertson is making me snacks and drinks. And I'm like,
Well, she
but
just ate up the furniture in this one. She ate up
oh
the
yeah.
row. She
I mean,
was the ball. Even is that Milia there? Milia May?
yeah, she wasn't in the role. She was not there. She was just came out to support that night. I'm sorry,
Oh,
I'm incorrect. She was backstage. She was the stage manager.
yeah, I
My
remember her
mistake.
being part
Yeah,
of the.
she was. Yeah, she was the one who kept the machine going. So yes, so she
Right,
was
and
helping us backstage.
she's a talented actress herself.
She's great, and I again, the sad part of having so many plays, I can't remember if she did any of my short plays at Whitefire, but I do know when I was working on a short series called Eclectic at local libraries, she did do some of my plays there. So
Oh, amazing show. Very well done.
yes.
What do we got here?
Well,
is this the musical?
So this is the first run, I think. Yeah, this is the very first run. That one again. Now my memory is cleared up. Now I know for sure that this was 2012, probably March. This might have been April by the time we took this picture. So, so yeah, a fabulous cast. It really was the beginning of a dream come true. It was my first.
Yes, folks, that's Tom on the shoulders of his cat.
Yes. Yeah, and it really was a great experience. It was my first full-length play to be produced, and it just was a bottle from a rock, because after that I had Edgar produced by the Unknown Artists here in LA a few months later, and then I had the Paranormals produced at Zombie Joe's, and then I had Tenants, that play that I had for very, very long, got produced in Tehachapi, of all places, where I am called Tehachapi's favorite playwright. So,
Tehachapi, where's that?
Tehachapi is like north, it's sort of north of here,
California.
east of here. Yeah, California. Tehachapi. It's sort of it's in Kern County. Probably like the other side of Kern County from Bakersfield.
Okay. So, I just wanted the state. I'm Tehachapi, Florida.
Yeah, California. I figured everyone knew where Tehachapi was. So speaking of, here is Tenant. So
this Tenant, okay.
Yeah. So this was another first for me, even though it was I believe the fourth full-length play I have produced. This was the first time that I actually didn't have any big hand in the production process, because I don't live in Tehachapi, and Tehachapi is still about 90 minutes away from here. So they asked if they could, they were so excited. I had won their short playwriting contest 3 times in a row. One with no problem was the last one, and I guess they just said, "What else do you have? We would love to do one of your full lengths." So they produced Tenants, and it was the first time I really had to give a full-length baby away to somebody else to take care of it, and they did a phenomenal job. That was one I remember walking into seeing the set and being blown away, because I'm like, this is the set that I imagined. And they built it, not really knowing more than the one paragraph that I had about the set, and I said, this is exactly as I pictured it. So it was cool. Wonderful to see my brain pour it out on stage, and so, I know
people are thinking about this. They're going into writing or considering doing some writing, playwriting or whatever. How from a realistic standpoint, they wanted you to play, you said, and you said you gave up your baby because you had to trust that they were doing it. As a writer, do they obviously have to commission you, or do they?
Oh yeah.
Performance? How does that work?
It depends. Unfortunately, theater is not the place that you're going to make a ton of money. But for most full-length plays specifically, someone will they'll write up some kind of commission, which will be whatever, a certain amount per show, or a flat rate, or a little bit of both, and if it's extended. Again, it's odd. The ones that I don't think I'm going to make a bundle on are the ones that I get a good size check for, and the ones that I think are going to make me rich, I get that little residual check that you see our actor friends post on there. And you've gotten a few positive reviews. I know that. I have been very fortunate with some very good reviews. The musical got a lot of good reviews. But you got to take the good and the bad. And it's tough, and it's tough for any writer. I know how easy, you'll get like 8 good reviews and then 1 bad review, and all you'll focus on is that 1 bad review, and it's really hard to break away.
Hey, wait a minute, Tom. If that's your ratio, 8 to 1, I would throw out the 1.
Maybe a little bit more than that, or or people who don't. The thing with geeks, where the good, I don't want to say excuse, but the good reasoning to say, possibly because it is a world that a lot of critics may not understand about Comic-Con, is they didn't get the joke. And they'd be like, it's not a really complex story. I'm like, but that's not the point. It's not supposed to be Shakespeare. It's supposed to be a very simple love story in a world that a lot of people aren't familiar with. That's what the gist of Geeks was. So,
okay.
Speaking of geeks, yes.
Is this Comic-Con? I don't know.
This is Comic-Con. This is Comic-Con. I think it might have been 2 years ago, actually. So
I believe the socks too are matching.
I do have matching socks. I don't know if you can actually see them in the picture.
No, but the tie, the jacket,
matching tie, matching. Actually, even the white shirt is matching. Even the lanyard is matching. So
now, for those 3 people who don't know what Comic-Con is, it's a massive convention where people, 500,000 people come a day to enjoy their fandoms, their likes, and even cosplay. Cosplay has become so big in the last, 20 years in terms of, dressing up in contests. And they have the masquerade ball. It's really, really big. Now, I hear you meet a lot of people there too, right?
It is, yeah. It is. It was something. Yeah. What is 150,000 people go a year? Yes, and you just randomly run into people in the convention center. So yes.
What about these guys here? Did you meet these?
These are a bunch of weirdos that stalked me at the convention center. So that's a few years ago, because I didn't even have the nice button-down shirt. I just wore another Batman shirt underneath it. So
really,
you see the progression.
When do you think this was? I can't read the badge. The badge would say.
Yeah, and you're back. Yeah. I would have to say it was probably 5 years before, maybe 4 or 5 years ago.
Okay.
So, I know I had that. Yeah.
For those who don't know, that's me on the left, Tom in the middle, and Mike on the right. Because you're like, who are these people?
Yeah.
Okay.
But Comic-Con is great, and I that suit I actually bought because I needed a costume that year, and let's just say it was a little above my costume budget, and I said I have to buy it because it's something I can wear to the premiere of Geeks. And and actually, that was after it was here. That was when it was going to New York for the first time. So
what's this guy?
Yeah, there you go.
What's this guy? And this is his website.
There you go.
Go ahead.
Actually, that the one on what I'm looking at left. So I believe it will be your right. The one with me in the bat. Nope, the other one. Point the other direction. Yeah, that one was from that's at the Egyptian Theater. They were doing a showing of Batman '66, the movie there, and I dressed up to go see that. And I'm like, if I ever get broke, I can go to Hollywood Boulevard in that costume, and people will pay me money to take pictures.
Wow.
Gosh, I don't even know, where did you dig that one up? So
that was actually from your website, but there's someone's around your shoulder. Can we talk about that person?
Oh, we can, of course. So. Is it
I didn't know if it was okay to include it, but no, anyway. That's,
yes.
All right, let's jump
Dr. Irvin Fang, yep.
Yep, and who is Doctor?
He is my significant other, my partner in life, the one who puts up with all this crazy theater stuff and has done everything from bring me and my crew meals to painting the sets.
Oh, that's right. I remember him bringing
very supportive to the theater community and puts up with the crazy schedule and I won't be home the next 7 weeks because I'll be in a production. So
he doesn't mind you traveling like that all over?
No, he doesn't have. Well, Wind is a big travel. He'll usually come with. So he came to both New York shows. He came to a show that we did up in Rochester when they did one of my plays in Rochester. When they did my other favorite play that we needed, Golden Age, which is my other multi-produced award-winning play about the old age home for superheroes. That they did in Michigan and they did in Texas, and he came to the Texas one as well. So
Okay.
So yeah, it's always nice to be able to loop a vacation around an event. So that's
This is
speaking.
your
So that's the
website.
San Diego Geek. So yeah, Geeks has been produced in San Diego, LA, and New York City. It's my most produced show, but that's from the San Diego production. So
Oh, is that what the cutout with Luke there?
yeah, little.
Okay.
Yes,
So you want to
yeah,
walk
yeah.
us
So
through
Planet Wars is the name of. I'm sorry, I didn't.
No, go ahead. Planet Wars is the name of.
Oh, Planet Wars is the name of the fictional TV series in Geeks the Musical. There's a has-been TV actor from that show who signs autographs. So,
Oh.
just like a Comic-Con. So, yes.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
You'll have to forgive me for not being familiar with it because I haven't seen it.
unfortunately, this weekend we lost the Mel Tyler from the San Diego Geeks show, Ed Hollingsworth, who did a wonderful, wonderful job playing the character, dressed up in tights and everything. And it was even fun. They had people come out. They would bring people onto stage for him to actually sign autographs for. And I know he had a great time doing that. I treasure the one that he signed for me. And even during one moment where he asks the audience if, am I, he has, I don't want to give too much of the plot away, but there's a moment where his morals are in question. And he asks, am I an old creep? And he turns to me that night that I was there and says, well, Tom, am I? You wrote the thing. So.
Wow. Now, when you say we lost, you mean he passed away?
He passed away this weekend, unfortunately, from cancer. So.
Oh, wow.
Thoughts are with him and his family. And I was honored that I had some time to work with him.
Wow. Okay. On a happier note, you want to walk us through your website or any place?
Yeah. So as I meant, so a very quick beat about my career. As I mentioned, I studied desktop publishing. I got into graphic design. I started my own graphic design company where we do websites and graphics. So when you do that for a living, your own website does not get updated as often. So yeah. So
well, with the pandemic, I take it this.
Well, no problem. Still happened. When we screened the two-player game productions of the. Actually, I think that's even a typo. It wasn't two-player game productions, but I think that may have still happened because that was January. And the two-player games thing was postponed. And yeah, so many things were postponed, unfortunately, in 2020. But here we go. And that, by the way, at the top is the set of tenants, which is just amazing.
Okay.
And see the Swami on where I'm looking at the left. He is wearing
this guy.
Yes, he is wearing a hat from. Can we pause a minute? Sorry, nope. Let's do. Sorry, I'm gonna give you 5 seconds. Oop, I keep doing that and losing my page. Okay, give you 5 seconds. So yes, that Swami at the top of the page is wearing Debbie Reynolds' beanie, like the Debbie Reynolds, like Singing in the Rain, Princess Leia's mother. So her one of her relatives did help with the set and prop design up in Tehachapi. So
wow,
so that's my
history.
Yes. So here are videos.
Videos to YouTube. Where do they go?
Some go to YouTube. I believe they all go to YouTube, actually. Yeah. And mostly right now, those GI60s in Brooklyn, they have a series of plays that are 1 minute long plays. And that happened every year. Unfortunately, didn't happen this year at Brooklyn College. And I usually get 1 or 2 in a year. And they put them on their YouTube page. So I share them. And here's like my short stories from most from recent to past. The One Up and Kill Your Darlings and Cut Above and Wordplay were all published within this year. So focusing a little bit more on writing on prose because it's a little hard to do theater right now.
Okay, where did this go? Oh, opened a new page.
Yeah, those are my reviews. So.
Wow, I got to look through. Oh my! What's the Geek Authority? Okay. That's me, guys. That's me. Okay.
So
Let's see. Okay, this
Works
is a
for
part.
purchase. Yes. call to action. So, so if you read this,
is Geeks on here? No.
Geeks is not on there because Geeks has not been published. So
Huh?
I've actually not published too many plays because unfortunately, so Department of Lost Souls is a novel that I wrote with my good friend Rob Werner, and that we just self-published. We had something good. I just wanted to get it published myself. And the If You Read This, You Will Die is a collection of my short stories that were published in the 90s that kind of weren't going anywhere because they were in literary magazines. And I think you know that literary magazines are mostly gone at this point. So I had all these stories that had been published, so it's hard for them to be published again. So it's that was sort of a vanity project for me because I wanted at least my stories to have some connectiveness in a novelization. So Lifestyles of the Damned, I don't want to speak too much of purchasing this, but stay tuned because my plan for 2020, 2021 is to do Lifestyles of the Damned remastered. So
Really?
to republish it under my own title and give the hint of the sequel that might be coming. So, yeah, and Ad Nauseam was a play published by Youth Plays, and that's one of those nice things that makes me some money actually because back in the day when schools did theater, they would commission the play to be done, and I would get every quarter I would get a little bit of commission money from that play. So
very nice.
Screaming, yes, and these are like little collections that my plays and or short stories have shown up in. Screaming Queens was produced up in San Francisco. Modern Madness has a short story. The Itty Bitty Writing Place has a short story in it as well. So
wow. Okay.
yeah. So
That's exciting. You've got
some
quite
fun
a
stuff.
quite a
Yeah.
career there.
I've had some
Okay.
fun stuff
I got
out there.
a couple basic questions.
Okay.
The future with this pandemic. Have you been writing plays, or have you been focusing on screenplays or teleplays or anything like that, or what's going on?
D, all of the above, literally. So
Hey.
so theater. So I'll try to keep it fast. So theater wise, I'm still writing short plays and full length plays. I actually just had a reading of my new full length play, Louis and Luchin, a modern retelling of the Corsican Brothers. We just did a workshop of that at First Stage, and it got a lot of good feedback. So I'm going to start working on the rewrite of that. At the beginning of the pandemic, Sebastian's company did a reading of my full-length play called Boys of a Certain Age, and we are writing. And so I got a lot of rewriting to do. And then I'm working on a lot of other full-length plays that I know we might not see up for a little while, but I'll get to them. And then 10-minute plays I'm writing. I'm even writing a lot more micro plays because I feel with the Zoom world, people want stuff that's like 3 to 5 minutes. So I've been writing a lot of micro plays. Has
Zoom been a part of your writing process? Or
it is now because it kind of has to be. I'm not a huge fan of the medium as writing, especially you're familiar with the type of stories, plays I write. It's a lot of quick back and forth dialogue with humor. And Zoom kind of knocks that down for two reasons. One, it's hard for two actors who aren't in the same room on Zoom to go back and forth. They might have a bad connection or stuff like that. It's really hard to get that rhythm going. And two, I can't hear an audience laugh, so I don't know if it's funny or not. The reading of Louis and Lucien, I'll have to say that the actors were phenomenal. That they really, by the time we'd rehearsed and done the readings, they'd had good timing. So timing was not an issue in the reading. And what I did for that was I asked those viewing if they could to write in the comments if they thought something was funny, like just LOL, or if it's something, if it's like, oh, pumpkin bread, LOL, if you found something, and there was a good number of people who did that. So that was very helpful for me when I go back to rewrite and be like, oh, this joke landed well, that joke landed well, or this was an emotional moment, or and work like that. So yeah, so it has to do for now because it has to do.
Right, but traditionally you'd have a finished script, a draft, and you'd pass it out to your cast, who would be reading it, and then you'd actually stage it or just do a read through.
Well, what I would do first, because usually I work with theater companies where we do I could do a few scenes of a full length play. Like First Stage, I'll bring in a scene or two of a full length play, and then I'll rewrite it, then I'll bring it back in, and then we'll work on it. And then when I have the finished script, after bringing almost every scene into to workshop, then I'll do a stage reading, which will then, yes, be people with scripts on hand, but acting out a little bit. So I get an idea of how things are going to look. And I mean, even from, I caught it in the reading, but at one point I'm like, oh, this character never left the room. They should have left the room a long time ago. You know, the kind of things that you try to catch when you actually want to physically stage something. So yeah, that is the next stage reading. And then, you know, you pray that it gets picked up and produced by someone somewhere, or at least gets, you know, some traction, awards or something like that. So,
Okay.
but I just figure go for it.
Can I ask what your writing process
is? Going to be, on a good day, are you talking about like more of when I do it, how I do it, you know, ideas? As for people like, oh, where do you get your ideas?
Well, I've talked to people. I think ideas come from all over the place, from most writers I've talked to.
Yeah.
But the few writers I've had, they have like, I can only write in the morning. I can only write in the evening. I got to have, you know, total silence. I got to be in a room full of people. I mean, what's your writing process?
Yeah, my writing process is I do like to get up and first thing in the morning, I mean, like while I'm having cereal and coffee, I will write. I will write something new, or I will, you know, enhance something that's already been written, you know, like rewrite something. I usually like that when my mind is clearest, when the phone isn't ringing, when a client doesn't need something, when, you know, something, you know, doesn't need to be done. So that's when I feel like my mind is at its clear. So I will write. On a perfect day, I'll write for an hour or two, you know, a few pages, something new. And then if all goes well in the afternoon, I will edit what I wrote, like go through it with a red pen, or these days on my PDF file. And then if I have enough time, I would love to put those edits in. If not, that sort of kickstarts my writing the next morning. Like, okay, like if I'm working on a full-length play and I edited scene 3 today, I'm going to go and make those changes, and that's going to get me in the mood to go write scene 4. So,
okay,
I mean, that's a good, to me, that's a good day.
You mentioned writing. Are you doing this on a laptop, on a pad?
I write everything I type. I physically type out on my keyboard on my laptop, and then when I edit, I like to edit on my iPad. Which, if you were to tell me 10 years ago, I would be like, I don't need an iPad, but I love editing on the iPad, because I can sort of sit and read it. It doesn't feel like I'm reading it in front of a computer. And then, as I said, with the PDF files, I can make comments, I can cross things out, I can write things in the margins, and it helps me edit.
The reason I asked that, I interviewed in another show a writer, a novelist, and she said, I like to write freehand. You know, she likes a pad of paper and a pen.
And I do that for original ideas. I usually write them all out first in a notebook. So so it doesn't mean I'm writing the whole story out. Sometimes I will. Sometimes it'll be A through Z here, and then I'll type it in and nothing will change. Sometimes it'll be just a germ of an idea, and then I'll flesh it out while I'm typing it out. And sometimes I'll have written 50 pages and be like, yeah, this one line is the only thing that I'm using. So yeah, I do like that. I also like that organic writing on a paper. But as you said, that comes more like how ideas are inspired. If I'm sitting writing like a story, yes, I'm kind of sitting and I'm writing it on the computer. But if I get an idea, I'm like, oh, let me see how that goes. Then I'll write with a piece of paper and flesh that out. So
kind of like an outline?
And that can happen at any time.
Kind of like an outline?
It honestly, it all depends. Sometimes it's an outline. Sometimes it's the full story. So it's how it flows out. Sometimes it'll be like, write a play about some guy being interviewed on Zoom, and then I'll sit down and I'll type out a play. But sometimes it'll be like, okay, Tom says, what did you ask me? Lorenzo says, I asked you the same thing twice. Again, it just depends on how it's formed, however my muse at that moment is giving it to me. So yeah, there's no pattern, but it's...
Here's a two-part question for you. 2 parts. One, of the genre, you've got comedy, drama, horror, mystery, all that kind of thing. What is your favorite style of writing to write? And then what is the easiest of those genres seems to flow quicker in terms of?
Well, it would be the same answer for both. I love writing comedy, and it actually very much flows for me. And sometimes I'm almost blown away that like I come up with something that I think is funny. I'm sure no one else is going to think it's funny, but yeah, when we put it up, it gets big laughs, and people, actors love to read it. They really, I feel that it flows right off their tongue. So, and it, usually flows for me too. So yeah, I do enjoy writing comedy. I like comedy with just a little bit either of an edge or a message in there. I like seeding something more, making people think while they're laughing.
Wow.
And yeah, it just always seems to just come together.
Then the opposite
Horror
question.
would be
Yeah. What's that?
horror would be my second. So horror would be my second favorite because I do enjoy going to that darker place. I
But
would
then,
say my short stories are definitely a lot darker.
but then what would be the most difficult to write?
I mean, straight drama has always been a little difficult for me because, again, I sometimes end up going too far into the silliness or going too dark on the other end. I mean, I can do it, but I just really feel like it has to be something of very importance to just sit and be serious. I'm also not too good at mysteries. I always feel like if I try to write a mystery or something with mystery elements in it, that I tip my hat too soon or I don't come up. I feel it's very hard. It's a very hard genre to be original in.
Wow. Okay. The reason I ask is a lot of people say that comedy, although it may be the most, the best to like for actors to perform, they say it's the hardest to hit on the head. And you find it the best.
And that's not to say that I don't struggle with things and I don't sit there, waiting weeks for the right line to come to me. But I do feel when I get into the flow of writing a comedy piece, it just comes naturally. So
Very
it does
cool.
feel like, yes, my muse speaks to me very well when it comes to comedic stuff. So
Okay. Now, I would like some words of inspiration. You're a writer. You've been doing this a while. I've seen a lot of your projects. People are watching this, hopefully learning a bit, loving your enthusiasm and all that. And they're like, okay, Thomas convinced me. I want to try writing. What advice would you give to the first time writer in terms of a media to choose from, theater, movies, television, film, whatever, and how to go about it? What's the basic that you would, help a new writer take?
well, as for what medium to use, that a lot has to do with what the story you want to tell. Like, if you want to tell an epic space battle story, you're not going to do that on stage. It just isn't going to happen. It'd be fun, but it's not, it's not going to happen. If you want to tell a little heart-to-heart, two-person drama, then yes, think about stage. So first of all, the person themselves has to decide what media best fits the story. And I also say don't limit yourself. Don't be like, I'm just going to write plays. I'm just going to write short stories. I'm just going to write for TV or movies. I think once you know how to write, I think you can write for any medium. As for how to break in, a lot of it is you just have to have perseverance. You've seen me on Facebook. I brag like, hey, I just got out of 350 scripts, they just chose my script to be produced or won an award or do something. And some people might be like, wow, Tom, what an ego. But what they're not seeing is the 300 other rejection letters I get in a month. So you have to have
Wow.
a hard shell. You have to know that rejection doesn't mean you're not good. Rejection just means you weren't good for this specific. I learned that. Luckily, I learned that early on. Yeah, I learned that early on when within it was either the same day or within a week, I got a rejection for one story, and the same week I got an acceptance for it. So it just goes to show you don't know what people's tastes are. So definitely, if you're doing writing short stories, you just have to send it out, send it to anyone who you think it might work for, but be prepared for the no. Be prepared for the no and pleased at the yes.
What about criticisms, both in the workshop area and then your play is produced or your movie is out or whatever is out there, and then they start reviewing it? How do you?
As I said, we all happen to focus. You can get 20 good reviews, and you're going to focus on the one bad thing. Now, reviews and workshops, I think, are two different beasts. Talking about the workshops for a minute, that's the time when you are working on a piece and the time that the piece should be its most clay, that you're going to mold it into something. Now, if somebody at a workshop says, this doesn't work for me, and you disagree with them, I've always found you just zip your lip, you nod and smile, and you write down what they say. Because here's the thing, they could be wrong, they could be right, or there could be something in between, which is usually the case. If you automatically think when somebody says, well, this character doesn't work, you're like, you're wrong. I've seen people argue in workshops. It's almost as wastes as much time as arguing on the internet. Because, people are there to help you. If people are saying something, there's a reason they're saying that. So if somebody says this isn't working, your job as a writer is to look at it objectively, be like, they said this isn't working. Is it really not working? Is there something that could work better? And again, you might be like, no, I'm not changing it. It's going to stay the same. But workshops are a great tool. You just have to learn how to use them. And you'll be surprised. And somebody might say something that will turn a little switch in your mind that will make you look at something in a different way. The thing with critics, when we get to the production stage, is, well, it's done. So yeah, maybe especially with theater, you can go back and change things a little bit. But critics come in all different forms. You've got the critic with the axe to grind. I've seen reviews, and again, yes, we might all put our own filters on there just to protect our own hearts. But I've seen reviews from critics where I'm like, I get a sense that you failed at something, or you couldn't get it to the next level, and you're insulting me for making it at this level. I hate to say that, but I do feel sometimes it is someone with an axe to grind, and I feel sometimes people just might not get it, and a lot of times it might be I've had the writing insulted for something that's more of the actor's part or the director's part. And again, I never want to insult anyone I work with. Everyone has a vision. Everyone brings things to life greatly. But a critic may not be able to recognize that the choice of the director is not the choice of the writer. So that's the other thing you have to look to. And at the end of the day, I mean, when I was in college, I was so critical. I was so, hate this, hate that. I actually have a sort of, my alter ego is called Emerson at Geeks, who hates everything and has a song called I Hate It. But, when you start doing theater, when you see how much love and work every single person puts into it, it's hard to say, even if there's times I'm like, oh, this is a bad script. But I can't insult it because I know that actor or actress is working their heart off. And the director is doing the best that they can. And maybe even the writer is doing the best that they can where they think they presented the best. So there's so many elements that go, especially into theater and film, that it's hard to be critical or to know exactly that if something doesn't work, who's responsible for it. So I just try to find what is working.
That's interesting too. I think what I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, is especially when you're doing the workshops or even you're seeing a play for the first time that's being fully produced. You got to remember there's a certain amount of interpretation from the writer's work by the director, by the performer,
Yes.
by the designer, so you're seeing a culmination of one story from everybody's vision, so to speak.
I'll even put it in a positive light. One of my favorite directors, he directed the two Geeks out here and has directed a lot of my work. Bennett Cohen, I don't know if you've ever crossed paths with him in the theater world, but a wonderful guy. And one of he's done a lot of my workshops as well, the stage readings works. And he'll say sometimes a good actor will make up for bad writing. So, you have someone as wonderful as Heidi reading my script, and she's making people laugh, but it's because she's so talented, and many people I work with are so talented that they're selling the material so well that there still might be a flaw in the writing that kind of gets overlooked because of the good acting and maybe because of the good directing. So it goes both ways. Like, a good script can be even better if you've got all this other good support system to it, and a good script could be worse if you don't have that good. So, I mean, I've seen it go both ways.
But what about the caveat? If it ain't on the page, it ain't on the stage. Are you a believer in that?
I believe that because it is very interesting how sometimes good, sometimes bad. There'll be something on stage that is still technically on the page, but the interpretation was not what I've seen. And I'd say 9 out of 10 times, that's amazing. I'm blown away, like, oh, look how smart I am, you know? I came up with that. But other times I'd be like, where did that come from? And then, but yeah, I'm like, but I'll say they didn't do anything wrong because they didn't change anything more than an interpretation, you know, like a comment or just like an interpretation of a line or a reaction or something like that. They didn't know that's not right. But that's, again, when you're at this stage, you're giving up your babies and you have to trust that the people who are taking them over are going to do them justice.
Now, I'm curious. Do you, when you go see plays, first time plays for yourself that other people have written or produced, how do I say this? Do you find yourself parenting if you meet the writer and you find something that you might have done differently, or are you just 100% supportive, or are you honest and say, you know, that sucked?
It also, to me, it depends. That also depends. Like if it's a stranger, I'm not going to give any comments because they're not going to know who I am from Adam and what I know. And also when a play is at a certain stage, it's done. You know, like I remember the night that Geeks premiered in Hollywood, I had a friend come up to me with notes. I'm like, no. I'm like, it's over. I'm like, I don't care what you like or what you don't like. I'm not going to be like, okay, here's, you know, like it wasn't a work. It was a production. The show is done. So when a show is produced, you know, it's done. So there's no point in saying, oh, this is what you should have done. This is, you know, a lot of times I go to theater with Irvin and he and I will start a conversation and be like, no, wait till the car ride home. Say only good things. And then when we get in the car ride home, that's when we can say, oh my God, what were they thinking? And you know, and I'm very fortunate, that most of my peers, you know, are very good writers and are open to any comments and feel honored when you sit down and give it to them. But you've just got to know when the right time is and when it's time to just be like, it's great. Another writer who's not a friend, and I actually did not like his material, got very upset when friends of his insulted his play after seeing it and couldn't find one nice thing in it. And he's like, couldn't they at least say that there's, you know, that the parking was free? So that's my like go-to thing. Like if you can't say anything, at least comment that like the parking was free, or the bathrooms are clean. Yeah. So there's so many, we live in a world where, there's so many you know, people on the internet want to say bad things to you all the time anyhow. So it's easier to find something. I haven't seen anything in this world that is so bad that I can't find at least one nice thing to say about it. So I will do my best to focus on the good and
2 points. 2 points. You're not alone in that drive home, because Michael and I have seen many a play, not yours, where we're like, okay, we're like, no, wait, we're going home.
Yep.
We want to talk about it, and it's so easy. But you can't do that. You just can't do that. And as a reviewer, I have seen maybe 2 plays in my entire life where I just could not write anything because it was so bad. Mm-hmm. And one of the plays, the producer said, well, I can't wait. And I'm like, no, you don't want me to write this. You do not want me to write this. And it closed the next week. But anyway, you've got to use a certain amount of judgment, both on stage and off stage and all that other stuff. So anyway, Tom, this has been amazing. You're an amazing person.
Thank you.
You're an amazing writer. You guys have, if you've never seen his work, you've got his website. Theater isn't going on right now. Hopefully in the next 6 months, things will change. A vaccine will occur. And
can I just add, I didn't finish the thing about films. I am working on a new short film called Terminal with Nero, the director, Nero Navarra, and we're doing that with Kaz. I'm terrible with names, but she used to work for the Stella Adler, and she started her own little group where we're making some films. So I'm doing one called Terminal, probably going to follow that up with The Adventures of Thoughts and Prayers, and a whole bunch of other fun stuff. So I am working on some films, and I'm also doing some short films via Zoom that are on my
website,
YouTube channel. I'll put them on. I'll update my website before this comes out to make sure that information is on there. So yeah. Okay. So there is stuff coming.
Okay. So what did you say? Prayers and what?
The Adventures of Thoughts and Prayers.
Is that in a comedy?
It's like it's a comedy. So I don't want to give too much away of it, but that's going to be it was a short play, but we're turning it into a short play, but we're turning it into a short film.
Thoughts and prayers from the people are saying.
Perhaps. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I don't want to give too much away yet.
Okay. So anyway, in closing,
yes, you're not wrong. Yes. So
in closing, do you want to say anything to your fans and people out there, writers?
Since we got onto the vein of criticism and stuff like that, I just want to say to everyone is this is, for those who don't know, this is a lot of work. And if you ever see anybody get a publication, get a production that's not self-produced, though self-producing is also a lot of work. Get anything in this industry, a role, a short film made. Praise them, because they worked very, very hard. You don't, that meme with the tip of the iceberg, you're not seeing everything underneath it. It is so true, especially for writers, because writers are a little disrespected in this community. Like nobody realize, how many, like the Valley Theater Awards don't even have an award for writing. So there you go. So, remember that they're doing this stuff, and to support them, to buy their books, buy their short story collections, watch their movies, watch their plays, support them, go to readings, and and be there for them, because it's a lot of work, and they're doing this because they want to share this with you and the rest of the world. So it's a gift, and you should accept it lovingly.
Wow. Wait a minute. Okay. Wow, that was cool. Okay, Tom, thank you so much. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you.
You guys, check out his website, check out his YouTube channel. For those of you who haven't subscribed yet, please, there's a button somewhere on the screen. Help me point, Tom. Hey, there's a button on the screen somewhere. Can you help me point? Yeah, somewhere. Subscribe. We need those subscribers. Click the little bell. I'll give you a little reminder. Just so you know, I have a couple other shows. He's good, isn't he? A couple other shows. The Unboxing of the Geek Authority. I have a Talk About show where we talk about different genres of film and TV. I also have not only this show, the Geek Authority show, but also the Geek Authority's Mysterious Chamber of Collectibles, where you can see all kinds of wonderful things that I collect and have. Anyway, Tom, thank you so much again. I had so much fun. I hope you did.
I had a blast.
Okay. So everyone, thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one. Say bye, Tom.